You also, in that article, talk about Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel
Yeah.
Prize winner, who's done so much, especially years ago with his colleague Amos Tversky. And in his book that came out not that long ago, you refer to it and you say, and again, it's in the same spirit of judges sort of, if you will, upping their game, taking what's already pretty impressive performance, obviously great skills in so many domains, intelligence, et cetera, and saying, but can we do even better? Can we catch areas where we're not as solid as we might think, especially at moments when it can be so discombobulating for everybody in the room that it affects us too. You say, and you're referring to system one, system two, which is the system one sort of like the quick, impulsive, sometimes very helpful, sometimes not. In fact, I'll let you sort of explain this. You say, if you would, you say, although system two would appear to be normative for judges in our professional role, the demands of our job can cause system one to operate more frequently than we might want.
Right. So system two is the reflective, rational, deliberative, evidence-based way of thinking. And we all would like enough space in the judicial world to approach every problem that way. In fact, that's our norm, right? I mean, that's why I say it's normative. I mean, that is kind of the calling balls and strikes that Chief Justice Roberts famously talked about. I mean, you're looking at you're looking at the evidence, you're applying the rules to the evidence. The problem is it rarely happens like that, because each case that comes before you is going to stir up certain things. It's going to elicit certain responses. And then that gets, and Kahneman talks about this, that you're how system one you are on any given day. And that's where I think about how much sleep have you had. And Judge Frank, what did you have for lunch or breakfast? I mean, and there's a famous study from Israel where you did not want to be up for parole late in the morning because the judges were hungry and they were just denying parole for everybody. So it's really interesting. And I think the system one, system two framework is very useful, because there's nothing wrong with system one. I mean, system one actually is pro-survival. I mean, if you're crossing the street and there's a truck barreling down the street and you jump out of the way, that's a system one response, and you're not going to stop and do mathematical calculations about how fast the truck is moving, right? But it's not, it may be pro-survival, but it's not useful when you're trying to look at a problem that it's multifaceted and make a deliberative decision like we need to make in the judicial profession. So how do you keep system one from intruding too much into your process? And this is where I talked about equanimity earlier. This is really, to me, the payoff at the end of the day, is that I think I know most of the time now if I'm in system one. I'm not going to say I know all the time, but I think I know a lot more than I used to.
That's huge.
And so I'm able to say, it's the way my mind body feels. It's like there's just a way that I'm not in the same place if I'm feeling stimulated by something as when I have equanimity. So it's like there's a baseline where I can say, okay, this is good. This is where I am. I'm right here. And then I go, God, something is really pulling at me. What is it? And I mean, just sort of to go back a little bit to the very start of our conversation. I mean, one of the things that's been very hard for me, and I think the more I talk to people, it's been hard for almost everybody, say during this quarantine that we're in, is that the despair and the sense of just being really unhappy with the disruption of our lives and wondering if and when we're going to get through it. And, to some extent, I think the fact that as a country, we have not responded well to it, that all of that kind of, all the feelings around that are just there, and they just sit there all the time, and you wake up in the morning and you're reminded of them. And so what I've noticed is that has produced a certain mind-body feeling that I have, way more than I would like to have it. But one of the things that I've also realized is that that is what it is. It is a mind-body feeling. It's not reality. It's a piece of reality, and that there are things I can do to offset it, to get myself in a different place, to return to the equanimity I treasure so much. And and I think that's a really important thing. And I think what happens to judges, that particularly with certain kinds of assignments, I mean, same with federal judges, I think in some ways have it lucky because they are better staffed and they don't get cases that are quite as emotionally intense. But if you are a family law judge in a state court, if you are a juvenile judge in a state court, if you are a judge doing heavy felonies in a state court, and you see human suffering just parading through your courtroom every day with the high volume, and you get no relief from it, and you have inadequate resources, and maybe you have political challenges too if you're in a state where judges are elected. The amount of incoming for those judges is so enormous. And like, how do you keep your spirit out of that? How do you give yourself some space? And I think, that's a problem for our times.
It's important that you sort of are speaking in ways to the value of paying attention to the breath, paying attention to the body, not as an end in itself in that moment to feel a little bit better, though that may be a very wonderful thing to come from that, but rather to be developing somehow this knowing of yourself so that the equanimous quality that is developed through practice over time, you also become, it sounds like, exquisitely attuned to noticing even the subtlest shift out of it, to be able to recalibrate, to bring awareness and to do something in that moment that you might otherwise not even realize is happening.
Well, that's definitely the goal to which I aspire. I mean, every day when I meditate, I mean, this is kind of why I'm meditating. It's because I want to sharpen that awareness in myself. And, not to say I haven't fallen off the edge from time to time, because I have, and my wife and kids would be good witnesses of that. but it's that I think they also would say, if they were being truthful, that, I'm doing a whole lot better at it than I used to, that it's just, you do develop the ability to see where you are. I think so I like there's one of the applications that's available is called Headspace. And I like that the name for that app, because it is really what it is in a way. It's kind of like you just have more bandwidth. You just are able to deal with more incoming and sort it out and figure out what's what.
Yes, good. Thank you for that.